I'm Mike Smith, and the Bible study for this Sunday sermon is from Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. This is a very familiar parable to us. It's the story of how Jesus gives the rendition of the judgment day, when the sheep will be separated from the goats, and there will be a separation between those who are to be rewarded and those who are to be punished. These verses together create a kind of a mixed mood. Two dissonant moods, in fact, seem to run throughout this parable, through this text. The first is kind of a scary mood of aggressive judgment. At one point, the judge says, "Depart from me into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels." The group, of course, who's to be rewarded is invited to come and inherit the kingdom that's been prepared for them. So that's the first mood, is that of an aggressive judgment. But the second mood that runs through this text is a mood of celebration. There's so much mercy being shown by some of the characters of this text, giving gifts to the hungry, the thirsty, and the naked, showing hospitality to immigrants, and visiting the sick and the imprisoned. We want to make some general observations about the text itself and make note of a few specific things as well. One of the general observations is the humanitarian nature of this text. And here's what I mean by this. The judgment in this text is not limited to people of a particular religious sect. In other words, this is not a judgment for just Methodists or just Baptists or just Christians. The entire human race is somehow going to be held accountable for the way that we act toward people who are needy. Another thing about this is the judgment, which is executed in this particular text, has nothing to do with one's membership in a particular sect. It doesn't matter whether we're Methodist, whether we're Baptist, whether we're Christians. It doesn't even matter what our conversion experiences are or our religious convictions. Not in this biblical text. There's only one thing that will separate those who are to be rewarded from those who are to be punished, and that is the kind of behavior that's exhibited toward people who are in need, toward neighbors who are in need. This is a judgment solely based on humanitarian responses of people. So the judgment then is not a judgment that somehow a certain belief or being born again can qualify one for the rewards. It's universal in its judgment here. All the nations are going to be assembled, and everyone is going to be subject to this judgment. The way that the thing that makes us accountable is that we are members of the human race. The Greek rendition of this parable indicates that we're going to be judged one individual at a time on this matter. In other words, while the nations are assembled, we're assembled as nations. The pronoun that speaks of the judgment it's a singular pronoun. It involves being judged one by one. The fact that we're going to be assembled as nations, however, also means that however it is that we're judged as individuals is going to be dramatically influenced by the kind of group that we belong to. What in the end we amount to as individuals is partly attributed to the character of our nation, or what our family does, or what our church does. In other words, if our family never does anything and we just kind of go along with it for people outside the family, then that's significant in terms of who we are. The parable focuses a great deal on the least of these, and there's a pretty good job in the parable itself of articulating who these least are: the hungry, the people who are thirsty, the people who are naked. Strangers are listed in this particular list of the least of these. The word stranger comes from the Greek word xenos, and it means an immigrant, somebody who's come to live among us from another place, it also can mean somebody who's strange or somebody who's odd, whom we would prefer to stay away from. The sick and the prisoners are also listed. Just a note about prisoners in New Testament times. A prisoner is as likely to be in prison because of debt or because of having the wrong political opinion or because of trying to somehow practice the God-given rights as a human being than to be in prison because of a crime. So not every prisoner was there because they had done something wrong. The actions in this text that are lauded include several things. First of all, people are mentioned who give food and drink and clothing to those who need those items. So generosity is one of the things that we see here in this particular text. This is echoed in some other places in the Bible as well. In the book of James, in the 2nd chapter, there is mention about what good does it do when you see somebody who's in need to tell them good luck if you don't somehow in a very physical way help them with those needs. So actions and not just intentions or good wishes are lauded here. Another thing that's lauded in this particular text is to welcome particularly the strangers, the people who are immigrants, the people who are coming from a quite different place than us. To welcome, the Greek word here is synagogeta, and it means to gather or to include these people in our own social settings. It means to open the door, to let them in to our home and to our own social circles, to sit down at our dinner table and participate in our lives. The third action that's lauded is the action of visiting. In other words, making the journey to where somebody is. And these journeys, these visits, showing up, being present, particularly are helpful to those who are sick or those who are in prison because they don't lack the mobility to maintain their social connections. And so it's very important for us. These actions are lauded here in this text. As we read through the text, take a look at it, there is a strong element of judgment. Sometimes we would rather not think about that, and we'd rather leave that out and just sort of make a works righteousness text about all the things that we ought to do to help the poor and the needy. But this text does include the element of judgment. We're going to be held accountable for the kinds of lives that we live. And we're going to be held accountable to a God who has a fierce love for those who are vulnerable and is very protective of these people. That's the reality of life, is that this is the way God is, and the text invites us to make adjustments, to make room for this God and to be prepared for how involved God is with people who have needs. The text says that all of us then at some point are going to face a test, and the test will have to do with how it is that we took action in the face of people in our neighborhood and in our world who are needy. And so since we're all going to face this test, like any other test, we might want to prepare a little bit for it. So here are some possible ideas for us. We can prepare for this test by cultivating certain aspects of personal character, particularly those aspects of kindness and generosity and love and care for each other. Another way that we can prepare for the test that's mentioned in the text today is to participate in a group of people, which will help foster this kind of merciful behavior that the judge of the text so admires. When we participate in a faith community that is seeped in mercy toward others, when we participate in a group of people that is dedicated, devoted to being merciful, to doing some very specific life-changing ministries with people who are poor and needy, then our participation in that kind of group really helps to foster our own growth in these areas as individuals. It's also helpful for us as we prepare for this test, where the Lord is going to test us, to do our own part to influence the character of our own groups, our nation, our family, our church, to be merciful in a corporate sense. It's not enough for us to just act as though the nation we are a part of is irrelevant to what it is that God expects from us. God does expect us not only as individuals to do all that we can, but to work through our groups and work collectively, because there's such a great possibility. People working together can do so much more. So the test is coming, and it's an opportunity for us this period of time for us to be prepared to adjust our lives so that we too are doing the kinds of things that the people in the Scripture are doing who are so rewarded. Thank you for being a part of this Bible study, and I look forward to anything that you have now as we to the comments that you'd like to make below. Thank you.